Hello, and welcome back, subscribers and new viewers, to another Sunday Speed Paint. Spoiler warning ahead, I'm going to be talking about all 5 episodes of the Stolen Hope Reboot series on YouTube. I actually only just discovered this series a few days ago and binge-watched all of the episodes as soon as I found out, and I love this series, and I thought I'd talk about it, and I'll be using my character Silverthorn here to talk about it. First episode, released in June of 2021, we're introduced to Iris, Ares, and Vixie. Ares wants his 2 children from Iris back again, but she won't let that because she's angry that they were sentenced to death by him and they're struggling to adjust to their new lives. He wants them back because they're able to obtain the curse, which will make him stronger, and he thanks her for raising them up to now, and before Iris can escape, Ares and Vixie have her pinned, and Ares, with one clean sweep to her neck with his cursed powers, kills her. The task then for Vixie is to fetch these 2 children. We cut to Jackson, who's being bullied by a few of the Thorn Cats. Vivian, his sister, stands up for him, and they have a bit of a discussion back and forth that it's been 5 years since their mom passed and why she won't just let her feelings out, and Vivian's not happy. She doesn't want it to be forced out of her, and she's just living in the moment that things might be even worse during their training, which is interrupted by Dusk saying to round up so that they can prepare for the meeting. Jackson is once again bullied by another cat who decides to step on poor Jackson's tail, but we meet another cat, Lunas, who interrupts and says to stop acting like a spoiled little kitten, and you shouldn't be bullied for your past that you can't choose or control. Vivian addresses to Jackson to fix his posture because that's the princess who just saved him. We then get introduced to my favorite character, Apollo, who jokingly says, "Now bow before me and kiss my feet," which Jackson's about to, but he says, "We're not that uptight and you don't have to do that. You can just call us Apollo and Lunas," which I think is really sweet. Vivian seems to show right off the bat that she just really dislikes this, but before she can kind of seem to do anything about it, Dusk mentions that they have to be in groups of 4 for sleeping quarters, and by the stars of destiny, stated by Apollo, they're going to be a group of 4. Jackson's fine with this. Vivian seems to hate this because she feels like she shouldn't have to bow down to these royals, and they can afford to have one cat, not, at their leisure. To a certain extent, I can see where Vivian is coming from, but I also can see Jackson trying to adjust to their new lives. There isn't much that they can do about the past, and if they're going to get along, they might as well give these cats the benefit of the doubt. Vivian has other plans as she decides to drop the bird that she caught right in front of Apollo's feet and mockingly say, "Would you like that plucked and chewed for you, Your Highness?" But he says, "If you're offering, I would love my bird plucked," which nobody really seems to laugh along with that, which aggravates Vivian even further as she storms off. Jackson apologizes before trying to go off and find her and try and comfort her, stating that we'll have time to adjust, but she just wants to be left alone. In doing so, as she's walking away, she stumbles into Vixie, who says that you don't belong in the Kingdom of Thorns, and you won't be able to live up to your full potential unless you join me and Ares for training. Vivian may be hesitant about it, but she's more than happy to if it means that she'll be stronger and get to live up to her full potential. We pick up on episode 2 in September of 2021, where Vivian and Jackson are walking off far from the border. Vivian states that she's got special training and that this special training can be offered to him as well. When Jackson asks who, and she says that it's Ares and Vixie, he gets very upset, and I don't blame him, because his mom warned them both to stay away from this man. They tried to kill them when they were kids, for goodness sake. Vivian states that maybe Iris didn't tell the full story, and, trust me, I've been going to see him, and if it was bad, I wouldn't go off and bring you along with me. Which I feel like that's not the full truth, since we don't actually know what Vivian's been told in this whole time. Jackson's very upset and tries to go home, except he's lost, so he has no choice but to meet Ares. As Vixie and Ares meet up with them, they state that his physique and everything is perfect to obtain the curse. But Jackson and Vivian are forced to fight for Ares, but Jackson overpowers her and Ares praises him, stating that you are stronger than I was at your age and it'll be perfect. Right before he's about to seemingly swipe at Jackson's face, Vivian interrupts and says he's not ready. Jackson, bewildered as I am, asks what is this curse, what is going on, and why did he just try to kill me? But he's a bit skeptical of what he's told. As the curse is given, it means that you will be of higher tolerance to pain, but you'll receive even further pain. He wants nothing to do with the curse, but he's willing to give them at least a chance for training, because he wants to protect his sister. As they go off, we then cut to Ares yelling at Vixie, stating that you better watch your step around, Vivian, I don't want your loyalties to shift, and we see that it's really, really strongly stated here. Ares wants full and total control, and he does not care who he has to hurt to get that. As we switch to the training with the rest of the Thorncats, we cut to Apollo pinning Jackson and Lunas pinning Vivian, which Vivian states to Dusk perhaps she should spar with her brother, and she uses a tactic that Ares taught her to pin and practically almost bite Jackson's leg to hold him in restraints, which is pointed out to be a very confusing move never used before. Jackson covers for his sister, stating that their moms sort of taught them to it, but it's a touchy subject. We then cut to see the adorable Atticus and Caroline meeting up with Dusk, stating that they need a little bit of an extra help babysitting while they'd go off to do more meetings. Atticus runs to hide in Jackson's fur as Apollo tackles him to get to him, and Luna says he's being clumsy and should get off of Jackson. Everyone goes off to dinner, and we see that Jackson decides instead of going to find Vivian, he joins them for dinner. The ending scene we get to see is the king and queen, Augustus and Hessia, talking about finding spies in their kingdom, and Caroline suggests perhaps they should graduate the trainees early, which Augustus feels that they might be ill-prepared because their own children are among these ranks. Hessia states that she needs time to speak to Rose first. Now, if you're confused like I was when watching this episode, I did not realize until another episode that Hessia is blind, and she's able to speak to the spirits, and she's referring to the spirit of Rose, who is passed on, and gives guidance. Picking up on episode 3, released in December of 2021, we see Vivian scratching Apollo very deep in his shoulder, and Jackson as well. They're not happy about this, which is pointed out by Dusk, stating that this behavior is unacceptable, and they shouldn't be actively harming. They're just training with each other to prepare for the worst-case scenarios, not actually wanting her to maim each other. She points out that if you don't stop this behavior, you're going to be held from graduation. She's disdained and could care less, but she agrees. Jackson and Lunas are joking around as she puts leaves on him, stating, "It's just poison oak, you'll be fine," and laughs as she calls him Maple Boy, stating that they're just maple leaves and he's a bit gullible, and he blushes, and I think it's a cute little dynamic, and you can see that although Vivian isn't making friends with them, quite clearly Jackson, Apollo, and Lunas are making friends with each other. As they wander closer, the two go off inside while Jackson and Vivian speak, and he says, "Are you going to apologize for this?" And she states, "I'm showing not to be messed with. That includes you," and she snaps at him, saying that Ares sees you as the favored child because you look like him, and you're going to get the curse, and you need to back off because I want that curse. Inside the medical unit, we see Rowan and Sharp, and they're treating the wounds, and Sharp and Apollo get a cute little flirtsy scene as Lunas teases, stating that he's been in there before for fake injuries, just so he could see him. Rowan, on the other hand, pulls Vivian aside, and we learn that he is indeed one of the spies, as noted in the other episode. Confirming it, as he points out, we'll keep 2 pairs of eyes on Jackson in case his loyalties shift. Then we get to see Lunas having a similar power to her mom, seeing spirits, but they're more angrily shouting, and it's kind of hard for her to see and hear them very clearly. But not too much time after that, we see that Lunas, Apollo, Vivian, and Jackson bump into the Queen and King themselves, as the Queen speaks that she is trying to address things with the higher-ups, but she can't do it alone. This makes Vivian snap, as she has a snake's tongue about it by saying, "You're the queen, they should listen to you no matter what." And it gets a little touchy. Jackson apologizes as they get a proper introduction. The queen states that "I had met you when your mother was still alive, and her abrupt passing was unfortunate." Vivian takes this as a direct statement that she's responsible for killing their mom, but Jackson disagrees and states that her tunnel vision will land her in hot water, and she states, which I'm putting a pin in this, that his pacifism will be his death. I'm putting a pin in that for reasons that I feel like this little line between the two of them is a bit foreshadowing on their future for each other. But Vivian goes off to see Ares and snaps at him when he says that you're just trying to fill a hole in your heart, and she snaps back, "You're doing that too with your new friends," and states that if you're not on my side, you're against me, and blood is thicker than water, which the full sentence to that is actually that the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which means actually that the relationships you form are stronger than family. and I feel like in this instance, Vivian does not care. She only cares about family and power, where Jackson is happy with the friends that he's making along the way, but still cares about his family with Vivian. But we then cut to see that, oh boy, she just straight up drops the news on that Jackson has sided with the Thorns, and Ares says, well, we're going to have to fix that now, aren't we? By this point, I was very hooked. I wanted to know more about all of these characters, and whether or not some of these spies would accidentally reveal themselves and what could come of this. Episode 4, released in June of 2022, starts us off with a flashback of Iris with baby Jackson and Vivian trying to hide away in a cave. We see Hessia and Rose's spirit speaking as she states that there is a great risk, but worth taking, to go against the Warlock. Now, I had some context of watching the sort of prequel information of this, and I understand that it is because of the Warlock that the curses exist for seeing the spirits, and the curse that is only given by, well, passing it on through an injury. So we have those two curses that are of the Thorn Kingdom and the Cursed Kingdom, which then we see, and Rose even states that she failed to protect Kaylee and Ares, as one died and the other, we know now, has the power and is just filled with hatred. Hessia speaks with Iris as she agrees to protect her and the kittens, doing everything that she can, bringing food, and even Iris states she doesn't want her kits to see her in this state and asks for some assistance. We then flash forward just a little bit to when Iris is dead and Hessia finds her. This is when I realized that she was blind when she puts her paw on her, sniffs it, and registers that this is Iris. We then flash forward to the present day with Jackson sleeping next to Apollo and Lunas, but he wakes up as Vivian demands that they follow with no choice. He sees Vixie and all of the soldiers around them and states that I will only go with you if you promise not to hurt my friends. Reluctantly, Vixie and the others agree to this, but obviously Vivian is not happy about this. She's angry all the way back. But we notice that Lunas was not actually asleep. She was pretending to be asleep, and she runs after. Ares, Jackson, Vivian, and them are all together as Vivian and Jackson are sparring. He states that it's time for me to reveal my plans. In 3 days, when the power of the full moon gives my curse power its maximum abilities, we're going to launch an attack. Vivian is tasked to kill Hessia, and Jackson is tasked to kill Lunas, but he refuses and starts a almost villainy but hero-y kind of speech to his father, stating that now you want us, and it's not good enough that you have my sister. She's not good enough. She's just blindly following your orders, and before he can finish his speech telling him to buzz off, he scratches him clean on the eye, giving him a deep gash, thankfully not blinding him in that eye, as a warning to obey or he'll force him to. He runs off, and Vixie is equally shocked as Vivian is, but I think Vivian's a bit more angry because she wants that curse, but she reluctantly states that Jackson had it coming. Jackson, meanwhile, runs off in fear as he ends up stumbling down a rocky pathway as the voices haunt him, and the pain, I imagine, is unbearable. As stated by Ares, he'll be in a world of pain for the next few days. But this is interrupted as Lunas's voice can be heard in the distance. He mumbles that he doesn't want her to see him like this, but she states no matter the trouble he's in, he's safe now. And I think that this is a great build on their friendship, that regardless of what's going on, she heard what he said back in the tunnel when they were asleep, that you were willing to sacrifice yourself to protect me and my brother. That is selfless, and so Apollo then finds them and is alarmed at Jackson's injury, but Jackson sort of fibs to an extent, stating that it was just a cursed soldier and he took care of it. They head back to get some rest, ending episode 4. Episode 5, December 2nd of 2022. We pick up with Atticus sneaking into Sharp's medical room wanting to see their flag hanging up on the wall, excitedly shouting that they are going to be getting a flag of their own but different colors for their birthday. Caroline apologizes to Sharp, but Sharp doesn't mind, and I like these little interactions where we get to see more of the world and the characters. It makes it feel lively getting to see what they're all doing instead of it just focusing on our protagonists and antagonists. We then cut to Jackson, unmoved for days in the den, as Lunas comes to ask if he's okay, and to tell what's going on because she's worried sick about him, but he wasn't budging, so she leaves a rabbit for him to eat and says you can talk to me about anything when you're ready. As she leaves and he eats the rabbit, Apollo then bursts in and pries him awake, stating that you look like you've been through a tornado, and Dusk has spotted cursed spies and army on the border. It's been 3 days, and with Jackson now fully aware of what's going on, he snaps out of it and rushes. We then see Dusk warning the king and queen not to join in the fight, but Hestia states she will not have her subjects be seen as puppets. Sharp and Apollo have a sweet but kind of sad little bit of an interaction where Sharp states to Apollo, I don't want to see you coming back in the state that I've seen some of these other cats in, and is very worried for him, and I think it's really sweet. Jackson finds Lunas and says, there are a dozen things that I want to tell you, but my mind is just too all over the place. Will you let me fight by your side? She agrees, and I think it's kind of funny. Apollo tugs on Lunas's ear, stating, you guys need to get in gear, we can't be the last ones on the battlefield. Then we cut to Ares, Vixie, and Vivian, covered in mud. We see that she is prepared for the battle, and Vixie compliments her, only for Ares to discredit this, stating it's just the bare minimum. As they argue back and forth, she's ready to fight, and she jumps down from the tree when Ares states that Jackson is the biggest threat now, and you should take a number or two from him for learning lessons, and she doesn't like that. Launching the attack early, Ares snaps as Vixie states, we were going to charge into battle anyway, but he's not having any of it. He doesn't want anything but his word to be the final say-so. As they charge into battle, it is nothing but a bloodshed as Ares violently assaults some of the cats' necks, paws, and spines. We cut to Apollo kicking some butt, and as well as Jackson using his cursed powers to protect Lunas and the others. The queen even fights off some of these cats from the cursed kingdom, as she states that it won't be any good, you won't win, and we see Rowan finding an injured cat. Now I'm going to say this, I've had my suspicions about Rowan 50-50ing, but I wasn't expecting him to go all-out murder. He grabs the injured cat, who has broken legs, launching them into the ravine, and another cat sees this, trying to cry out for help, but they're too far away and no one can hear them, launching them into the ravine as well. I was kind of worried that Rowan was going to do that for more of the cats, but we cut back to see that, oh boy, Vivian is out for revenge as she heads straight for Queen Hestia, but only managing to get a scratch on the top of her head, Vivian sees Augustus, injured and trying to make his way to the medical bay. But after some back-and-forth torment, she kills him. She sees Lunas and sighs that her brother hasn't done his tasks and she must do it for him, only to be interrupted by Jackson, as they argue back and forth, stating that you shouldn't be doing this, Mom would be disappointed in you. And then she states, well, since you ran away from your father, I decided to kill hers, which causes extreme devastation, and I don't blame him for not wanting to attack her, because it seems all she wants is for him to scratch her to give the curse to her as well. Not sure if that's how that would really work, but we can see that Jackson really doesn't want to hurt her. He states he's tried loving her unconditionally, no matter what, but you've sided with Ares, and you've spat on Mom's grave, which sends her overboard, and she cuts his throat. Putting that pin in it from earlier, taking that by stating his pacifism will be his undoing and death. But he doesn't seem to be for dead, he's left for dead by her as she runs off. At the end of the battle, when it seems that too many of Ares' soldiers are dying, Vixie calls for a retreat, and they flee. We see Apollo and Lunas regrouping to find Jackson, but it seems that he needs extreme medical treatment as he's going to bleed out. She tries her best, and Rowan and Sharp come to help, but as they're trying to carry him back to the med bay, we then see that the king is dead, and Hestia is crying. As the two kids run over to their mom, we get a very sad but very touching scene of the credits rolling with a funeral for Augustus. And oh boy, I've got a lot to share for the recap of all of this, and a little bit for each of the characters. With all of that fresh in my mind, I was in tears by the end of watching episode 5, and there were so many questions left unanswered, and I wanted to go over my thoughts of the characters and what I think might happen for the future episodes. The main thing that I feel might happen, based on what we know of the characters with prequel information included, is I feel like if Jackson is in the med bay with Rowan and Sharp, Rowan's not going to be careless. I feel like either Rowan is going to take this information to Ares and explain or find out that Vivian was responsible, if he doesn't already know, for Jackson's demise and being left for dead, and perhaps Vivian is going to get punished by Ares for this Or another idea is that perhaps Vivian tries to return, finds Jackson in the med bay, and is faking that she's worried about him, wanting to see him, and perhaps Lunas and Apollo, and even perhaps Sharp and Rowan won't let her anywhere near him. Those are just some possibilities, but I also feel like if Jackson does come to and he sees his sister again, he probably doesn't want anything to do with her anymore after his statement before his demise, and I don't blame him. Honestly, I like that these characters have stayed true to themselves from the beginning, and this is key because we can see Vivian is willing to kill or do anything it takes to get what she wants now. She was willing to practically kill her own brother because I think she wanted him out of the way. She wanted Ares to only have her now, and she was more than happy to do it and call it a happy accident on the battlefield that he just so happened to be left for dead. And probably tries to, but may not be able to keep it a secret that she was the one who was responsible for it. But I feel like Ares and Vixie are definitely too smart for that, but I also don't know if Vixie's going to still stay on the side of Ares, because she seems like she's really fed up with Ares, and at the same time, she doesn't quite have a choice, and I feel like if her and Vivian are kind of sort of friendly towards each other, they might be able to work something out, but I don't think that's the case. That's just me piecing a few small tidbits together, because Vivian has only sort of received praise, and she's accepted this praise from Vixie and wants that same praise from Ares, but isn't getting it. And we can see that frustration at the start of the fight when she charges into battle. Another thing is, I'm not sure how the Queen and Lunas and Apollo are going to take this, because she wasn't out on the battlefield when they were fighting, so it might be a little bit kind of hard for her to stay hidden and to lie about the fact that she is a spy, and they might catch on or they might not, and there might be a short period of time where she's able to hide this, but I'm not sure. Another thing that I really like is a lot of the side characters have so much story to work off of. We're not really sure how this is going to affect Dusk and Caroline for the loss of Augustus, same as the Queen and Apollo and Lunas. And with the history of things, we're not exactly too sure how this is all going to affect the Warlock's plan, as we heard from the backstory when we got to see Rose talking with Hessia, and the plan of destiny that seems to be for Jackson and Vivian. And my thing is, I noticed that there are kind of, I guess you could call them parallels between Ares and Vivian, where I feel like she's going down the same path as him, but almost worse. Almost like she's going down an insanity type of path because she's not getting what she wants, and I don't think she ever will achieve this, where what she's imagining in her head probably isn't going to come to fruition unless she's able to make a drastic impact. And this drastic impact might have been for her to take out Jackson from the equation, but it's all left in cliffhangers, and this is all I can speculate on, and I love it so much because I'm attached to all of these characters, and I'm also worried for the future of some of the other characters. I'm worried for Apollo and Lunas in case Ares, in their time of grieving, decides to launch another attack after a bit of recovery. But only time will tell for what's to come, and I'm excited for the new year. Honestly, I hope that if their schedule still stays on par, perhaps something by summertime will get an episode 6 onward, and after a few more episodes, I'll probably make another one of these videos, because honestly, I have quite a lot that I'm excited for with all these characters. I still think that Apollo and Jackson, Lunas, and even Vivian are my favorite 4 characters out of all of them, just because of how much screen time they've had, but also just getting to learn about them from episode 1 all the way to episode 5. Even though I know that I have a bit of disdain for Vivian, she is still true to her character, and I want to see what happens and where it leads her. I want to see if it bites her in the ass or if she gets away with it. I also hope that Jackson will be okay, and I hope that he'll be able to stand up to his sister, and I really hope that him and Lunas get to have a strong friendship and maybe a relationship. And I even want to see Apollo and Sharp, because they're absolutely adorable together, and I'm just really excited about this, and this isn't the only series that I want to talk about. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, I know it is a lot longer than the other videos that I make. I plan on making a lot more like this with other things that I'm a fan of, and also just to be able to experiment with my art styles, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed these character portraits that I made of these characters, and Don't forget, if you have not already subscribed, to do so you don't miss out on any future videos. Check out my link tree down below, and thanks for watching, subscribblers. See you next time. Bye-bye. That about wraps it up, folks. If you guys have enjoyed, don't forget I have playlists and a link tree down below for more, and if you want to help support this channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like to let YouTube know so we can reach a wider audience and grow the subscribblers army. See you next time. Bye-bye.